sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. When death has come and taken our loved ones, it leaves our home so lonely and drear. Then do we wonder why others prosper, living so wicked year after year. Farther along we'll know all about it. Farther along we'll understand why. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. When we see Jesus coming in glory, when he comes from his home in the sky, then we shall meet him in that bright mansion. We'll understand it all by and by. Farther along we'll know all about it. Farther along we'll understand why. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. Tempted and tried, we're oft made to wonder why it should be thus all the day long, while there are others living about us, never molested, going the wrong. Farther along we'll know all about it. Farther along we'll understand why. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. When death has come and taken our loved ones, it leaves our home so lonely and drear. Then do we wonder why others prosper, living so wicked year after year. sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. When death has come and taken our loved ones, it leaves our home so lonely and drear. Then do we wonder why others prosper, living so wicked year after year. Farther along we'll know all about it. Farther along we'll understand why. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. When we see Jesus coming in glory, when he comes from his home in the sky, then we shall meet him in that bright mansion. We'll understand it all by and by. Farther along we'll know all about it. Farther along we'll understand why. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. Tempted and tried, we're oft made to wonder why it should be thus all the day long, while there are others living about us, never molested, going the wrong. Farther along we'll know all about it. Farther along we'll understand why. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. When death has come and taken our loved ones, it leaves our home so lonely and drear. Then do we wonder why others prosper, living so wicked year after year. Farther along we'll know all about it. Farther along we'll understand why. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. When we see Jesus coming in glory, when he comes from his home in the sky, then we shall meet him in that bright mansion. We'll understand it all by and by. Farther along we'll know all about it. Farther along we'll understand why. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. When we see Jesus coming in glory, when he comes from his home in the sky, then we shall meet him in that bright mansion. We'll understand it all by and by. Farther along we'll know all about it. Farther along we'll understand why. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. Tempted and tried, we're oft made to wonder why it should be thus all the day long, while there are others living about us, never molested, going the wrong. Farther along we'll know all about it. Farther along we'll understand why. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. When death has come and taken our loved ones, it leaves our home so lonely and drear. Then do we wonder why others prosper, living so wicked year after year. Farther along we'll know all about it. Farther along we'll understand why. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. When we see Jesus coming in glory, when he comes from his home in the sky, then we shall meet him in that bright mansion. We'll understand it all by and by. Farther along.
All right. 1 Timothy 5. This is I suspect if folks were going to make a list of chapters in the Bible, I don't know how I can word this. I don't, if they would say, do we really need that? Is that, can we just get on to the next section? Or, I mean, this would probably be one of those, and you may be saying, I don't know what's in 1 Timothy 5. Well, you're about to find out. And so it's a chapter that deals with, a big part of it deals with the care and the instructions for widows. Now, don't all get excited all at once on me. I know this is cutting edge. This is, everyday, exciting, transformational teaching that you're just riveted by and are going to be riveted by. Now, widows, I love you, and I'm not making light of you. I'm just saying that this is probably a section that a lot of people go, okay, that seems maybe back then, okay, I guess we can see a little bit of that, and let's just kind of move on because that's really not so much for us, is it? And so it's an interesting chapter. It'll also deal with instructions with dealing with elders that we'll come back to in just a little bit. But we don't enroll widows, last time I checked. Now, that's not to say the church has not helped financially, and we'll come back to that in just a moment. as far as application. But I'm not aware of any enrollment plan here at Manford. I don't remember any enrollment plan my 9 years at Crosstown, or 9 years in Shawnee, or my 4.5 years in Cleveland. I don't remember an enrollment plan for widows. I don't remember a database, a sheet, a financial ledger, who's in, who meets the qualifications. I don't remember any of that. Matter of fact, I don't know many churches that have this. And so it is certainly tied to the customs and the culture that the early church found themselves in. The church, back then, things were different. Government does a good chunk of this today in areas, not just in the care of elderly and widows. Now, don't misunderstand. I'm not saying that there's no elderly folks or widows that don't get neglected and don't struggle to make ends meet and pay their bills. I'm not saying that. But widows are not abandoned and thrown to the curb on the streets, are they? No, we don't allow that in this country. We have resources, we have government, state, local, all sorts, and not just for widows, but for children, for foreigners. But this was a radical thing. Governments, historically speaking, do not do this sort of thing. I don't know if you're familiar with the history of governments and human history. This is not what governments have done. This is really a more modern that we see taking place. And so it was radical. If the government, or in this case now the church in the first century, if they didn't take care of widows they're not going to be taken care of. That's as simple as that. If they don't have children, if they don't have an immediate family, it's not going to happen. Now, let's start with this question. How does God view widows? And there's really a trinity, if I can use that phrase. There's kind of a trinity of three that in the Bible, God says you better take care of them. Widows, orphans, or the stranger or the foreigner. Those are the three categories in the Old Testament that if you want to get on God's bad side real quick, you start doing that. Messing with, neglecting, abusing, hurting widows, orphans, and the stranger or the foreigner in the land. Matter of fact, just read the minor prophets. The poor, neglecting the poor, they would all be in this same category, because widows and strangers and children and those who in this regard are going to be desolate. God was what? Real specific in the Old Testament, wasn't He? We're not going to look at those passages. About the care for widows. What kind of a God do we serve that He says things like that in the law? You leave the edges of your fields for the poor. You make sure that there's no childless or widow or stranger or foreigner in the land that's abused or neglected. I mean, that gets to the heart of our God, doesn't it? How does God view these individuals? Very, very near to His what? Near to His heart. Why is that? I mean, we could speculate, right? We could throw out some good answers, probably. Why is that? It's a kind, loving God. He's a gracious, benevolent God. Compassionate. God is known to do what for people? Especially people in what situations? People that what? Dire situations. People that are not able to what? Care for themselves. What else? People that are not able to provide, defend, protect, the vulnerable, the weak. That's the opposite of what society has done. And again, things are a lot better. Don't misunderstand me. We're not like the first century, but it's not like that. This is still not a problem for people who are vulnerable and weak. Even in our modern society, even in our great country, And it's easy to kind of just brush it off or not want to think about it or just kind of, well, I'm sure somebody else is doing something. I mean, what I'm getting at is this chapter, these words, they don't seem to strike us as extremely what? Pressing or what? Important or urgent. I mean, now if somebody's thinking about becoming a Christian and being baptized, or